And we are live.
Boom.
Boom, boom. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the much delayed episode 10 of B+S Gaming.
Yeah, I'm so beyond apologizing.
Hello,
for being
everybody.
late.
Welcome to the much
People can kiss my
delayed
ass.
episode 10 of B+S Gaming.
Oops.
There. Somehow I had my Twitch actually with audio. That's not good. So now people just heard that twice, but that's okay. That's only for a few seconds. All right, let me tweet this some stuff out. So anyway, I'm Sam.
I'm Bill.
And
Hi.
yeah. Sorry about the delay. My body hated me. I ended up back in the hospital for a couple days. It was not fun, by the way. Although it
Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, well, I ended up one of my stents in my left leg got blocked. So that was the arterial, but I also ended up developing a venous clot in my left leg as well. So now I have two bad legs.
Jeez, man.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not fun. But that's life. And then you've got your new job that you ended up having to do something this week pretty late, right?
Yeah, so we did Project Kickoff. So I've been working there for since January, but we haven't the project that I got hired to initially start on. We were still building the team, and so this week we finally kicked it off. We did, we broke down all the project into its different components, and what parts to start coding first, and so we wound up we did a team building thing on Monday, so we stayed pretty late, and then this week was kind of touch and go because we basically, instead of just going into the office, we actually sequestered ourselves away during the day in a nearby hotel conference room.
Mm-hmm.
And we did the whole thing on the wall with all the sticky notes and
all the pretty lines and different colors and everything.
Yeah, mapping out the application and all that stuff. So yeah, it's been a real long week.
Yeah. Yesterday was a long day for me. I worked from 8:15 in the morning till 9:15 at night.
Ouch.
Yeah, we had a major problem with something that went out. Basically, the truck that was supposed to picked it up or came in 24 hours ahead, and he picked up the wrong load.
That sucks.
Yeah, it's quite an expensive mishap, but I don't have to pay for it, so I don't care.
Yeah, that's the best part.
So, let's see. Looking at our notes here, as soon as I remember what tab I put them in.
Yeah, I gotta bring that up.
Yeah. Well, Sea of Thieves got released, so you could buy it either $60 standalone, or if you have Game Pass, it's free for your $10 a month subscription. I was not impressed.
That's the thing, and it's the thing that everyone says is the thing that is absolutely true. And aside from the beautiful water, it is really fun for an hour, and then basically there's an hour's worth of content. So after that, it's just and then people have figured out how to grief. I never actually sailed a giant ship because I always played by myself, so I had a tiny one. But apparently, there's a thing where 3 people can vote to lock one in the brig. Yeah. So if you got accidentally paired up, or if you get connection dropped out and then automatically paired with 3 other people, it became very common that they would just vote to lock you in the brig and just to grief you.
Yeah,
stupid.
I ended up getting griefed by another player. I only did one quest. I get back to the base, and if you looked at a sign in the bar where you start, it basically infers that there's no PvP at the base areas, because it says all grudges will be settled at sea type deal. So I'm like, okay, and I'm taking my chest back to sell it, and the dude kills me, steals my chest, and I was like, you know what, fuck this game, I'm done. I don't need it. Because I was playing by myself. I'm in a small ship. And it's the same thing with MMOs, stuff like that. When I want a PvP, I'll do the PvP stuff, but I don't normally play on PvP servers because I don't feel like getting griefed or ganked or whatever when I just want to get some stuff done. And
yeah, that's true.
Since there's no option for that, I'm like, well, I'm glad I didn't pay $60. It's just a $10, a month thing. I'm done. I don't need it. So I really only played it once, and I after that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't need this. And then after that is when I heard about you do the same couple quests over and over again, and then you just keep doing the same quests over and over again.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like NPC pirates or like
There is the Kraken, but that's about it.
Yeah, and I heard the Kraken's just tentacles above the water. If you went under the water, there's nothing there.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
like
it's
an
really
inky mess, so you can't see anything.
yeah, it's really weak.
Yeah.
I never saw the Kraken. One cool thing that did happen because I didn't know that this was in the game, and it was one of those moments in a game where you're like, wow, once it's over, you're like, that was awesome. Which was I was going, and all of a sudden my compass was spinning around crazy, and you can get caught in like major storms.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was going, and the seas got super choppy, and it was just a really neat experience, especially by myself. Like because apparently the seas are bad enough; they can the waves can hit you hard enough where they'll actually start to sink your ship. You have to go downstairs and below decks and patch it up. I had to run down a couple times. I didn't sink, but I almost did, and it gets really dark, and it's just really cool. And then I managed to and it took like 5 minutes. And I thought it was because I was near some island that I wasn't supposed to be near. I thought some cool natural protection. And I looked it up afterwards, and it's just storms that happen randomly. But it was really cool. It was really, really neat.
But not enough to keep you playing.
No, again, it was one of those things where it was kind of a one and done. Like if I had to go through that again, I'd just be annoyed. But I wasn't expecting it, and it was a moment in the game where I was challenged. For the seafaring stuff that I was unexpected. It wasn't as cool as the Assassin's Creed Black Flag storms that we had I loved in that game where if you got caught in a storm, you had to line the bow of your ship up with the incoming wave, line it up perfectly
so
to cut the wave. Otherwise, yeah, you could capsize. Wasn't that cool? I mean, that was actually fun, but it was a lot more intense. There was a lot to it. But yeah, other than that, I mean, I didn't really. I played the demo more because I got really into it because I thought, okay, so this is just a sampling of what'll be in the game, and some stuff that wasn't in the demo that was in a real game, like ship customizations and stuff. But I thought you could, I don't know, like when the game came out and when I played like an hour or two of it, and I realized that really there's not much more in the full game than there was in the demo. I was like, I just lost all interest.
Yeah, and that seems to be the prevailing thoughts. Some people are still having fun with it, and more power to them for doing it, but a lot of other people are just like, yeah, there's not enough in there. So all right, so that's Sea of Thieves. Have a couple
now
quick...
I kind of want to loop back on one thing though. Rare has been saying that they're going to add more stuff over time, that this is kind of a living game.
Mm-hmm.
I would ding them for that because you basically released, I mean, people can get it on the Game Pass.
Mm-hmm.
But you did release a full price game with no content and no real like timetable, when to expect stuff or what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, good.
Yeah. And it was in development for quite a few years too.
Right.
So a couple minor things. An update that's going to enable variable refresh rate for the Xbox One X and the Xbox One S, believe it or not, is coming later this year. The TVs that are going to let this happen on probably aren't going to be released until like the middle of the year. So if you remember, those were the TVs that I was waiting for before I got a 4K TV.
Right. So
that's pretty neat. I'm actually impressed that the S has that capability as well. I didn't think it did. Also, that same update will have an ability to let your Xbox One X or S automatically change your TV to game mode if that's supported over your HDMI output. And that's actually kind of a big deal because, God, I always forget to put my TV in game mode when I'm playing. I don't know about you.
Not really.
Like you never put it in game mode, or you just forget to do it, or?
Well, no. I mean, I think I customized it, and then I recently reset it. So because they keep changing the settings on my TV, like they'll update it because it's connected to the internet.
Oh, okay.
So and they update it and they reset stuff. It used to be where I had, and I showed you when I first got the TV, they had this thing called I forget what they called it, but basically it gives it that what some people call the soap opera effect. Isn't that what you call it?
Yeah.
Where what it's doing is it's sort of injecting 30 or 60 frames a second by kind of like interpolating, right? So by adding extra frames, by like kind of reading in between the two, right? Just doubling them. And I like it. Not everyone likes it, but it used to be I could turn it off and on, and now I think it's in one of those settings. It was on game settings, and then I said everything because I was having problems with color. So I was like, okay, well, let me just get this TV back to factory settings because it had been updated. And they changed a bunch of stuff. So now I kind of leave it at, I don't know what settings it's at, but it's like I'm getting the best. The colors and the brightness are just right. Mm-hmm. And yeah, sometimes I forget now that it's in that fake 60 FPS mode. And when people come over, they're like, "Oh, it looks weird." I'm like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I'm used to that."
Yeah, yeah. Well, the whole thing with game mode is it turns off a lot of the TV's post-processing abilities, so that you get a better latency, better response time.
Yeah.
And that's the big deal. And I always forget to do it on my TV. Because my TV, even if I turn it off in game mode, it won't turn back on in game mode. And it was actually neat when they showed it, is that, so like if you're in the menu, it'll be off. But as soon as you go into a game, it turns on. So I was like, oh, that's actually kind of neat. So again, those TVs will be out later this year as well.
Yeah.
EA has removed the loot boxes from Battlefront 2.
Now, are they doing that permanently? Because didn't they say that they were going to bring them back after they revisit?
They're bringing them back as cosmetic only, and you're going to be able to buy what you want.
Okay, do you think that they're doing that because really, I don't know what the player population of the game is, but basically nobody's coming back to this game, right? Like this game is pretty much, I don't know how again, is the population good?
I honestly don't know. I actually bought it this weekend though because it was on sale.
For how much?
For $25.
Okay, that's a huge drop.
Yeah, and I bought it and I had like 5 and change of Microsoft credit, so I actually got it for $19. I haven't played it yet because the loot box changes aren't going to affect until I think July. But I'm like, for $25, I'll download it. You know what I mean? And then it ended up only being 20. So, yay me!
Right.
And also, WB Games is doing the same thing. They're removing the microtransactions from the Lord of the Rings: Shadow of War, and I think that's also going into effect like the 1st of July.
You're covering the camera.
Yeah.
Sorry, my wife is in the room. She's like walking in front of the camera. Yes, that's the actual camera that's streaming my face.
Hello, Candace. The Duke controller is up for pre-orders. That new Duke controller. See, now you might be interested in that. You like the Duke controller.
Yeah, and so as you said, I'm actually considering getting it. It's got a cool. I know the screen it's the big logo in the center of the Duke controller is an actual screen. Now I don't know if it gives useful information. I don't think it's interactive.
I don't think it is either. I think it just does like the Xbox startup thing when the controller turns on, and then it just has the Xbox logo, the original Xbox logo.
Yeah.
I think it's $150. I didn't look. Like, I didn't like the Duke controller that much that I would definitely say I'm going to go buy it. But I would say, you know what, if I had some extra money and I just wanted something to show off, I probably would.
I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it for 2 reasons. One, I did like the controller, and I probably enjoy playing with it. 2, I definitely want it as like a collector's thing. Because I feel like I think it's almost targeted for that, right? I don't think there's going to be broad appeal for this thing.
No, I don't think it's going to be mass produced. I think you're right. I think it's going to end up being like a limited run, you know, maybe 20, 30,000 or something like that. And then, you know, unless it sells well, in which case they might keep going. Right.
So I'm going to want to get that for collector's thing, and it'd probably be more for display than actual use, but I do want it.
And there's an analyst that thinks the Switch might pass the Xbox One sales by next March because of how well it's doing so far. It's already sold like 14 million units by the end of its first year on the market. And to that, I say that's going to depend on if Nintendo can continually put out games that people are excited for.
Yeah. I mean, I see the Switch keeps getting a lot of accolades, but I always come back to the same thing with Nintendo. I'm always going to be butthurt about Nintendo because of the
NES
what do they call
Classic.
it? The manufactured scarcity stuff that they do. It bothers me to no end. I have gone back and forth. Maybe I thought I might want to get a Switch, but until they allow that system to play classic Nintendo games, I don't really want it.
Yeah, I could see that. I just think it's more again, if Nintendo can keep putting out games that people are excited for. They announced the new Smash Brothers, so that's going to be something people are excited for. The new Mario Tennis Ace actually looks really fun, and even if I buy it and I end up not playing it alone, if I go over Joe's and I can play with Giselle,
Right.
you know what I mean? So that's something. But I don't see a ton more games that, as of right this second, that are going to keep moving Switch units, personally. But that's
right. Well, that's kind of my
thing.
point, right? Is they don't have games, and this is the other thing that really bugs me about Nintendo, is they have this classic library of games that everybody loves, even people who aren't gamers, right? Or I mean, there's so many it's almost that word almost has no meaning anymore because there are a lot of people who play a lot of video games and don't call themselves gamers because they think that that's something else, right? But there are a lot of people who play video games, and there's so many people that have fond memories of playing Zelda, Super Mario Brothers, Mario Kart.
Shit, even just Tetris.
Yeah. And so if Nintendo would just bring that in, and I can't wrap my head around why they're such a stubborn, they're so stubborn with their IP. They could make so much money, and I don't know, maybe they're already solvent and everything's fine and they don't care. But even if money wasn't the issue, it's about just giving fans what they want. And Nintendo certainly is a cult of personality. I mean, it's almost more famous just for being Nintendo, really, than the games it makes. I mean, it's kind of not true, but you know what I'm saying? Like, Nintendo itself as a game maker, both the consoles and the video games themselves, they're famous for that. Like, those IPs are very tightly associated with Nintendo, and there's a lot of nostalgia along with that. So the fact that Nintendo won't say, put the games on mobile phones, put classic games on the Switch, I don't get it.
At least as of right now, yes. We don't know. Supposedly, they're talking about like a virtual console coming, which is fine and dandy, but until it's here...
Yeah, it's not here, so there's really nothing to talk about until it gets here, and I don't believe that they're going to do it.
Yeah, I don't know. But there are some old Nintendo games that I wouldn't mind playing. You're right. Like, hell, I'd even go back to, you remember the old ice hockey game where you got to choose between like the big fat guy and the medium guy and the skinny guy?
Oh, I think that rings a bell. But I would love to play the original Zelda again. I would love to play the original Metroid again. And, basically what Nintendo's doing, and, they had that, they came out that little console thing, and they undermanufactured. Why? Do you hate money?
Yeah, that's what people were asking, because the NES Classic, people went nuts when it was actually proven to be real, and then it was like impossible to find. And like you said, it's like, what, do you hate money? I don't get it. Like, this could have sold 10 million units easy, no problem, just from people our age,
right?
And like you said, even people who weren't like, who aren't big gaming people now, might be like, oh, look, The Legend of Zelda, Zelda 2, Castlevania, Super Mario Brothers. Oh yeah, I'd buy that, and it's only $60 and I get 30 games. Yeah, you know what I mean? And it's like, you could have made so much money off of this. And the same thing with the Super Nintendo Classic. They had more units, but as far as I know, it was still really hard to find. So,
yeah. But we got off on a rant there.
Yeah.
You were talking about removing the loot crates, and following the Battlefront 2, the Shadow of War also did it, right?
Yes.
So, and that's because they received, would you say, as much, if not more, backlash than or did Battlefront really take it up the ass?
Well, no, Shadow of War took it up the ass too, because their loot crate, there's no multiplayer aspect to Shadow of War, so their loot crate thing affected single player.
Right.
And they took it. I mean, people have said, yes, you can play and do it without spending any money, but you're grinding an awful lot to be able to do it. Yeah. And, so I haven't picked it up. I didn't play the first one. So
I liked the first one. I played a little bit of it. I liked it. It was like, and I bought it like years after it came out. I bought it for like $10, and it was really fun. Even if I had bought that game full price, the gameplay mechanics were cool. So it's real unfortunate that, when the sequel came out and they were building this popular game that was really well done. I like that Nemesis system. That they ruined it with loot boxes, and you don't have this in the notes, but I wanted to say that this is something that rumor has it that the whole building a game and gameplay mechanics around a loot box system being so toxic now for the PR alone of a game that it's one of the reasons that the name slipped my mind, that BioWare game coming out,
Anthem.
What is it?
Anthem.
Apparently, Anthem keeps going back to the drawing board because evidently they were trying to get in on the loot box thing, and I guess they didn't anticipate that the backlash was going to be so fierce and awful that's one
to the point where lawmakers are talking about making laws against it, or making laws where people have to put on the boxes that this contains gambling or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Nobody wants lawmakers to get involved, but that's what happens when you don't check your greed.
Mm-hmm.
That's what happens, And so Anthem apparently, and their like lead designer just left, and
their
there's a whole bunch of people
one
on
of their
team.
Lead writers left. Yeah, they've lost a bunch of people on that game recently, and it's not a good sign.
I'd love to know what's going on there. I wonder if maybe they were trying to remove loot crates, but then leave them in some capacity, and the designer's like, I can't do this. I'm trying to make a video game, not a gambling lever.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like.
Ironically, that was something that EA said was, we actually didn't intend to make a slot machine with the boxes in Battlefront 2. And people are like, yeah, you did, actually.
Right. What bullshit? Because when you're building anything, when you're building a building, when you're building a car, when you're building software, you have to be completely aware of how all of the parts fit together and, what determines behavior. And if at any point you're building a gambling machine and you don't know you're building a gambling machine, then I can't even think of a good metaphor.
Yeah, I would say you have a big problem if you don't realize that what you've built, it can do something you didn't intend it to.
Right. And, of course, keeping in being consistent, going to mention Warframe. Warframe, when they realized that they had built a slot machine.
Took it out.
What's that?
They took it out.
Yeah, right. They had built what effectively became a slot machine for getting Kubro themes, I guess, for their fur. What do they call it? And, as soon as they realized they had done it. So maybe it's possible on a small scale. You think, oh, you have this mechanic.
Right.
But then they realized that somebody spent like $200
in like 2
just
days.
Trying to get the Kubro fur pattern that they wanted. And
they're like, and it was real quick. Like, they monitored it. And, they saw, like I said, like one guy... You're right. He spent like $200, and it was like, or $200 worth of platinum. So maybe he didn't spend the money to get the platinum, but the idea is the same. And,
well, no, I think the amount of money that he spent on just getting the Kubro patterns itself was equivalent to $200.
Okay, right.
That's what they saw.
And so within a week, they took it out of the game or something like that.
Yeah, it was. They just put out a little like hot fix for it. So. I can understand on a really small scale, you build something, you think, oh, okay, randomize, you get random stuff for fur, and they could have just said, oh, well, I mean, he's an outlier. Not everyone's going to spend that much money on fur, so let's leave it in. But they didn't. They were proactive because they saw the dangers of that, of inviting that kind of behavior.
Right. They saw the potential problem down the line.
So I can understand on a small scale like that. But when you're building an entire gameplay mechanic around loot boxes, that's a little different. That's deliberate. And there's no other way around that. You can't accidentally make a slot machine.
Right. Yeah, you're right. So the other big story I had before the PS5 rumors, which we will get to in a minute. So apparently Far Cry 5, which we both have,
Mm-hmm.
we both haven't played a ton of it yet. I've been having fun with what I have played.
Yeah,
And,
totally.
I mean, I've played, I guess, about 12 hours so far. And for the record, you know, if anyone wants to see how much I've played, I've streamed every time I've played. So it's not like I'm skipping parts and then going back. So it's about 12 hours. It's my first Far Cry game besides Blood Dragon. So even I knew like the tropes about Far Cry, about climbing the radio towers to get all the information about your land, and how like in one of the very first things you climb a radio tower and the guy's like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to have you climb radio towers all over the place." So they're self-aware. They're self-aware.
Good. Yeah, I like that kind of humor.
Right. But apparently, so Far Cry 5 is being I don't want to say attacked, but I'll say harshly criticized by certain members of the gaming media for not being political enough. And
I don't know. Yeah, let's see. I didn't read the article. I didn't get a chance to.
Yeah, well, I put a bunch of snippets up in there. But it basically boils down to when Far Cry 5 was first announced, a lot of these people were saying stuff like, "Oh yeah, we're going to be fighting white supremacists, you know, Trump voters, blah blah blah," and the game did not turn out to be, you know, middle American white supremacist Nazi Christian Trump voter murder simulator 2018 like they were hoping.
Right, it's just a religious cult.
Right,
that's all it is.
Right, and not even just that, but even, you know, some people are like, how are the conservatives like good guys in this? Because some of the people that you meet as NPCs, you would classify as conservative people. Well, they're middle America. That's where a lot of conservatives are.
Yeah, it's in Montana.
Yeah.
And as a liberal myself, I play the game. There's at no point did my snowflake tendencies get triggered.
Right. And they make fun of both political sides. I'm going to say that.
What's that?
They do make fun of the left and the right in the game.
Well, they do. I mean, the game itself has always had like, you know, a dark humor to it, and was always sort of interested in. I think because of the nature of the violence that it contains, sort of poked fun at itself as well as kind of braving some of the darker territories. The antagonist from, I think it was 3, the Islander guy, the real creepy guy.
Yeah.
He was really sadistic. He was a sincerely evil villain. And in this one,
have I ever told you the definition of insanity?
Right.
That guy, yeah.
That guy. And he was really good. He was really creepy. And it was really gratifying killing him. But this is a game that, again, doesn't shy away from the violence. And it takes place in a part of America where the Second Amendment is probably the only amendment as far as they're concerned. And so what? It's a bunch of people out in the wilderness hunting. I think the game is beautiful. I think they're not trying to make a political point.
Right.
So people who wanted video games to shoehorn in their own personal agenda, yeah, they're going to be disappointed, and you should be disappointed because nobody came to you and said, we're going to make a statement about the current affairs of politics in America today. No one ever said that about this game.
Right, and especially because it started being developed in like 2013.
Right, and just because they saw a hipster with a top knot who has some weird preachy religious message didn't mean that it was an indictment of hardcore like Christian conservatives. And listen, I will criticize hardcore Christian conservatives all day long, but this game is not for that purpose.
Right. It's, you know, it's just funny. Like the GameSpot did a video, and this one quote just sticks out. And it goes, "The game also has a character creator, and I decided to make my character black. So going on to Herc's property and actually hearing him talk about this sort of deeply conservative and sort of gun-toting attitude, that made me real uncomfortable. And to that I say, motherfucker, if hearing some fictional character in a video game who literally, this guy literally, there's a phone message you can find where he sounds like a mix of Alex Ross and Rush Limbaugh, is like kind of the way he talks. And he's literally talking about how he wants to go for Senate, and he wants to build a wall, an ice wall, between Canada and Montana, and every year inch it further north until Canada is American again. Okay?
That's pretty funny. I mean, that's obviously
it is
parody.
It is. And
right.
one of the other missions is it kind of makes a parody about the whole Trump golden showers tape that supposedly exists from Russia.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a few little things in there, but they're played for jokes.
Right.
And so if hearing the guy that wants to build an ice wall and inch it forward or northward until Canada is America again talking makes you uncomfortable, I have a feeling you have a lot more mental issues that you have to deal with.
Yeah, probably. And, you know, the other thing is, in the character creator, which I thought was pretty neat, it's pretty, like, I don't use the word diverse, just because it's overplayed and I feel like it has no meaning.
Well, you can make
but, I mean,
black,
it's not
Asian,
yeah,
I guess Middle Eastern
very,
looking,
like,
Mediterranean, all different stuff.
Yeah, there's, I mean, really, like, the girl, and there's no, like, just, like, straight up white Valley girl that you can play that would be offensive, and it's not like you only get one choice, which is the white guy hero. You know, it's one of the things I'll give Far Cry credit for, the developers of Far Cry, is that a lot of the criticisms, especially with Far Cry 3, was here we have an action game where you're yet another white guy coming in to save the dark-skinned people in their island, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was the criticism. And so fine. They made a game where you could choose the gender you want to be and, like,
pretty much
sort of
any
whatever.
race,
I can't even
any
tell
race
what
and mix you want.
Yeah, I'm playing a female. I can't even tell what gender she is. She's some sort of like dark skin. I don't know. You know what I mean? I almost didn't care. I was like, oh, that looks cool.
I literally,
again, that was like basically
literally
you're
when I
picking
created
a character
my
who looks
character.
neat.
Yeah.
What's
well,
that?
I didn't even do that. Like when I created my character, it was like choose male or female, like before you do the beginning part.
Right.
And so literally, I just looked away and just with the stick, and then hit the A button because I didn't care. Like I didn't care whether I made a male or a female. You know what I mean? And it ended up picking female. Okay, great. So I'm a girl. You know? Yeah.
So, and you know, it's kind of interesting. I think I have heard a couple instances in the game where they do refer to her by her gender.
Maybe, but that's just simple, you know, if-then statements in the code.
Yeah,
know?
Right. No, it's just I'm saying, like, it's kind of cool that they not only allowed you to pick and customize a character, but then that actually has some kind of interaction in the game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm kind of looking through some of these quotes. I mean, this is really what it is. It's people projecting, you know, the cult's ranks are stocked with a mixture of races and genders and what feels like a careful sanitizing of the subject matter. That's projecting. You had an expectation of what this game was and what it was supposed to say and what the people in there were supposed to do and say, and they didn't do it. Like, you were expecting to play a different game. You didn't get the game you wanted, so now you're trying to politicize it, which I find kind of annoying. If I cared enough, you know, but I don't. So it's just annoying, and then I'm going to forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, and there's a quote from Anita Sarkeesian in an Imager thing where she talks about, well, hopefully they'll talk about how the white supremacy of cults. And I'm like, cults draw people in from everywhere simply because it's, you know, as we discussed privately before, most cults are not about religion, even though they start out that way. It's all about power for those at top.
Yeah, I mean, it's typically about the narcissism of the leader. Mm-hmm. And I've been listening to, and Sam, you and I were talking about this, I've been listening to a show about cults.
Which I still have to listen to.
It's really good. I mean, you can go through a bunch. It's the podcast network is called Parcast. I guess it's supposed to be like paranormal.
Okay.
Cast, whatever, broadcast, whatever it is. But anyway, so they have a show called Cults, and it goes through, and it's really interesting. They do some modern stuff. They do some stuff that's sort of pseudo-cults. And, you know, it's really interesting stuff, but it almost always comes down to you have a very charismatic, narcissistic leader who makes all these promises to people, and then they sort of intuitively figure out how to manipulate groups of people, because it makes people feel... You know, it preys on people that have, you know,
insecurities.
Insecurities, but it comes from ones they tap in like cultural insecurities. You know, people who come from poor areas or come from areas that are, you know, downtrodden or they feel ignored, and this charismatic leader will make them feel special. They do things. You know, it's really interesting. And the thing is funny. And as I've been listening to a lot of the show, and now I'm playing this game, to me, I'm like, oh, interesting. They probably have done a lot of research about cults because they're doing a lot of the things, the way the leaders have these like messages and you're special and you've been chosen.
Yes.
You know, you've been specially selected.
Yes. If you went to the one guy's thing, he's got I'm like, it's Daniel Bryan. Woo! Daniel Bryan's part of the cult.
So I thought it was really interesting that they were actually being very true, and I haven't gotten through. I haven't even killed any of the main leaders yet, so I don't really know exactly. But I'm still kind of working through the first one. But again, it's addressing some of those issues, like what happens when you have cult leaders. In fact, interestingly enough, I have yet to hear of a cult that had like any sort of what's the word I'm gonna look for? It never had three. It almost always comes down to one. And this one, it's the brother and then two younger brothers and a sister, or no, it's whatever. It's a family basically.
He's the youngest, is the leader, and then his two older brothers, and then this. They call her sister, but the one guy in the beginning is, if you read the notes about her, he's like, she just sort of showed up one day, so I don't even know if she's actually related.
I didn't see any notes on that. No.
Yeah.
Lately, I've had very little tolerance for reading in a video game, mainly because I've been reading so much technical journals for work. And so when I get to read, I'm like, I kind of, because I used to read every little thing. So anyway, to me, it's not about like, I needed to have some sort of validation because I'm unhappy with the current political situation in this country, so I need a video game to validate me. People who go into video games looking for that are barking up the wrong tree. This game does exactly, and I wanted to play this game because I am interested in like cult mentality and cult behaviors, and this game is pretty good. If I have any criticism against the game, it's like, Jesus Christ, I kill one cult guy and here comes like an army. Like all of a sudden,
but you know what? That's Far Cry. Far Cry's been that way forever.
Yeah, no, I know. There's just times where like I'm just trying to hunt or fish and like whatever, and here like I'm just getting like planes flying over me and friggin' everybody's got beards and man buns.
Dude, every time I'm just trying to do a little thing and I see the sinner and a fucking plane strafes me. I'm like, where the fuck did you come from?
Right.
Yeah, because I'm at that point now where they are calling in the planes, like not just helicopters, they're calling in the planes to attack too, and I'm like, at least for the zone I'm in. But yeah, I just don't get why people need to feel themselves validated through any media to be truthful. I watch any media, movies, TV shows, video games, even books. I don't go in there to be representative, to be validated for what I'm doing. I go in there for entertainment.
Right. Yeah, because you've got a few quotes in here. You really went all out on this topic here.
I did.
But so one of the quotes, another one is, it's true that Far Cry 5 was being conceived and built before the frenzied political climate, as you mentioned, in the U.S. escalated to where it is now, but in practice, it's more than a little strange to see a game set in rural America where players form resistance to fight a militant Christian cult, and it just has nothing to say, nothing at all, one way or another. Sure it does. The whole point is, you have your MacGuffin, okay, people? Let's remember, it's a video game. Mm-hmm. So you have your basic premise and your basic reason to shoot thousands of people.
Yes.
Okay? Trying to make a statement. What hero slaughters like a small genocide's worth of like Americans to say what exactly? And you're the hero?
Yeah, and you figure this is, like you said, rural Montana. I've already killed over like 400 people.
Right.
Okay, I'm fairly certain that this county, if it existed in real life, would probably only have about 10 times that many people.
Yeah, at this point, the United States government is hunting you down with like howitzers, and they're coming like
National Guard is coming.
Some psychopath in Montana today slaughtered half the state's population.
Right, they're coming after you. They're not going after the father.
Right, but they want some sort of statement about religion. No, it's not. It's
religion,
really just
politics. It just doesn't need to be there.
Right, and basically the real point is some force has come in and posed an existential threat to this community, and so the community is going to rise up and fight back. That's like the premise of any underdog story. So again, you hear this a lot because of this sort of like 24-hour news cycle thing, right? So you always hear that there's actually not enough things that probably happen in 24 hours to have a news cycle constantly yammering about something, right? So
even if you had reporters all over the globe in every time zone, you're not going to find enough.
Right. And what happens is it's not even just that there's not enough news on a sort of like global scale, right? So you've got world leaders doing things. We talk about it, but then every industry has to have its own sort of like 24-hour news cycle because of the way advertising works and because of the way we have to like generate content nonstop. So people have to sit, and literally I can imagine people just sitting down and thinking, because I think this is less about an agenda of a certain one political side or another trying to, control the minds of America. What I think this is a person who has some kind of worldview, and they're just going to sit down and think of the most controversial thing that they can drum up for clickbait.
Mm-hmm.
So it seems like to me.
In
and
a
then
lot
if
of
it's
ways,
popular enough, if enough people click on it, and this happens certainly a lot in gaming news, especially on the internet, but like if something's popular enough, oh, well, we're going to get on it too. So if there's some controversy about GTA, then people are going to jump on that, because for the next 24 hours,
24 to 48 hours, yeah, you'll make your clicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, Anita Sarkeesian, I don't even give really any, mind share, because
neither do I normally, because she's just a scam artist. She says things to get people to give her money. That's all.
Yeah, she's human clickbait, and so I think that her relevancy is slipping, and I think the best thing to do for everyone is just to don't even mention her name.
Let her go back to that little corner of the internet that she started out in. That's what I say.
Yeah, 4chan.
Yeah,
literally.
So, I guess one more topic. PS5 rumors dropped. Have you been hearing about them?
I saw some stuff. I've seen conflicting stuff. I've seen that there's going to be a PS5 coming out this year. I've seen some other Sony exec saying, no, not this year.
Okay.
So go ahead. Tell me what you got.
Well, this website called Semi-Accurate, because they're semi-accurate about things, which they did predict the PS4 specs roughly, the PS4 Pro specs roughly. They predicted like the Switch would be going with Nintendo would be going with Nvidia for the Switch. They've pardon me, comparatively a decent track record of leaks, and supposedly they leaked out this stuff for the PS5, and some of it is like, well, no duh. Okay. I don't know if you remember that video I put out like the day before E3 last year about like the future of game consoles. And I had mentioned a few things like they'll probably use a Ryzen or a Zen based processor. They'll probably go with Vega and or Navi for the GPU, depending on if it's out and stuff like that. And that's pretty much what this said. It's going to have a custom Zen 8-core processor. Okay, so anyone with half a brain probably figured out that was coming.
Right.
Because you can't... Oh, Dobby and Zelda.
Yeah, they're making a lot of noise.
Yeah. But, I mean, you can't keep going with Jaguar processors at this point, especially if you want the 4K games and if you want higher frame rates. It was just inevitable that they were going to move up to a better processor.
Right.
The GPU aspect is supposedly being built with the Navi architecture. It doesn't necessarily mean it's Navi itself, but the Navi architecture. Kind of like how the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X, they use Polaris, but also with Vega improvements. So it's not really Polaris, it's not really Vega, but the architecture is based on both of them. So they're saying for Navi. And it's like, okay, yeah, we figured that. Now, I heard some really wild things after that. One of them was that it could come out this year, like you said, because development kits had already gone out. To that, I say no. No, not unless Sony wants to charge $1,500 for it or risk losing tons of money on every unit sold, because Navi's not even out yet.
Right.
Okay? AMD only recently started making Zen APUs, Ryzen APUs, and they only use Vega, and it's only, you know what the Vega 56 and the Vega 64 means?
No, I have no clue.
Okay, that's their compute units. So the Vega 56 has 56 compute units. Vega 64 has 64 compute units, and that's how they get their teraflop stuff. The Xbox One X, for example, has 40 compute units, and the PS4 Pro has 32. But the APUs, the system on a chip type deal that AMD is currently putting out are only Vega 6 and 8. So they only have 6 and 8 compute units. They're meant for laptops.
Right.
They're not meant for anything else. So I say no to that. Price-wise, just too much. There was talk. I heard people talking like, well, Navi's supposed to be able to get to 30 teraflops, so we'll probably see a 20 teraflop PS5. And I'm like, you're fucking joking, right? Do you know how expensive that's going to be? I figured between 10 to 15, but probably more right in the middle, like 10 to 12. But apparently another thing got released, and Dreamcast guy talked about this, where supposedly the dev units that they have right now are 14.2 teraflops or something like that. And I'm like, that's kind of high.
Right.
And the dev units also supposedly have 32 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. Well, here's the thing. GDDR6 memory isn't supposed to go into mass production until July. Okay?
Right.
And somebody said, another guy had said this probably sounds like
themselves.
For the memory units, the memory. Mass production. Obviously, there's some out there for people to be testing and stuff like that, but mass production. And it's going to cost 20% more than GDDR5 currently costs to make. So it's going to be more expensive. But when you think about that, 32 gigs, that sounds more like a dev unit, because dev units typically have more RAM than the final consoles. Because devs obviously need that extra RAM to test stuff.
Right.
And also that it has a 1 terabyte SSD. And I'm like, yeah, no, that ain't happening. SSDs are expensive. I paid, oh God, how much did I pay for? Mine was on sale when I got my 1 terabyte for my PC.
Right.
And I think I still paid close to $600 for it.
That's a lot.
It is. Now, could you imagine trying to sell a console with 14 teraflops, a 1 terabyte SSD, and 32 gigs of the most expensive graphics memory out there, and try to make a profit at $400? That ain't happening.
Right.
And definitely not this year. I personally think 2020. Because you got to get time for Navi to get out, and Navi might be being pushed back to 2019. You got to have time for AMD to start making the APUs that will use it, because we both know that the Xbox, whatever the next Xbox and the PS5, they're going to have very similar architecture.
Probably.
Just like even this time around, they have similar architecture. And then you need the memory, and assuming they go with GDDR6, I don't know if they will, because it's still going to be expensive, even in if they start production in late 2019. Still going to be kind of expensive. But if not, they could probably go for GDDR5X, which is what's in the GTX 1080 Ti. It's still fast memory. It's just not as fast as GDDR6. And then apparently Jason Schreier of Kotaku actually got in touch with some people. He's got sources. And he said it's looking more like 2020 from what he's been told. But that obviously the timetable could move up or back.
Right.
So what are your thoughts there? Okay, processor, 8-core Zen sounds reasonable.
I mean, you know a lot more about the hardware than I could. I wouldn't be able to process any of that information, other than to have you tell it to me. But I feel like that's a really short time box, right? So,
well, Ryzen came out last year.
My opinion is it just sounds like really, it sounds like wishful thinking. I think that, honestly, again, I can't really speak to the spec stuff, but what I can tell you is, and from what you're saying, that having all this stuff manufactured and then taking those parts and manufacturing the other stuff. And don't forget, I don't know if Sony has finally managed to find a way through whatever the Blu-ray production thing. I guess maybe they squared away, because Microsoft certainly doesn't see another problem, and the Xbox One X plays Blu-rays. But
the HD Blu-rays, yeah.
Yeah, so because we're getting something with the crystals for the laser or something for the blue laser or whatever it is. But again, there's always production issues. So to start if one of the major components doesn't start manufacturing until July, and you think that you're going to have a ready-to-market product,
By
mass
November.
market, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not even realistic. And what it sounds like to me, if I were going to take a guess, and of course I will, is that there is some element of the Sony crowd who's like, it maybe really just gets under their skin that despite the fact that Sony pretty, I think, handily won this round or this era of the console wars. If there really is such a thing, I think at this point people don't care. But obviously people are always going to pay attention to who sold more, who did better. And this console generation really is, for Sony, it's just about getting out there and building a good console and no bullshit, right? But for Microsoft, who came in with a massive
PR disaster,
massive head start, a lot of equity, blew it because of, again, things that consumers can't stand, where they're being forced to adopt a technology or pay for things they don't want, always on, which is ironic because now shit is always on. Like, you can't go, by the way, I was in upstate Massachusetts, and I logged into an Xbox with my account, but the internet went out. So I'm like, I'll just play some games that are already downloaded. You can't play them unless you have an internet connection. That thing that everyone was bitching about when the original Xbox One X was hitting the market, or Xbox One, excuse me, it's on now, and nobody mentions it, right? But at the time, it was a huge hit. So it was really about major misfires from Microsoft. And I think that it took Microsoft a long time to catch up. But they, I think everyone just sort of agrees that Microsoft had a really bad start. That's why they're behind at this point in the game.
They had
nobody's saying
they
that
had
Microsoft
a bad
is making...
first impression, and they had a bad head start, even though they changed a bunch of that stuff in between the first impression to the start. But it just never, that bad first impression just never left them.
That's true, right. And so now that they've released the X, which is undeniably a more powerful console, right? But, and I think it just bugs certain Sony fans. Like, Microsoft did actually make a console with software now, not games, that does a lot of really cool stuff, like the, OG Xbox back compat. Really cool stuff is happening now in the Xbox ecosystem. And I just think certain Sony enthusiasts are kind of like, so it's more fun to talk about, well, Sony's new big, powerful, most powerful console in the universe is coming out this year. So suck that, Xbox One X. But it's not.
And remember, if you remember, after Scorpio was announced in 2016, when it was still called Project Scorpio, rumors started flying that, Sony will release the PS5 in 2018, just to get to get the power advantage again over Microsoft. And I even talked about that in that same video where I'm like, nah, that ain't happening, because if they they at that point they had only been out for like 6 months by the time the Xbox One X was finally unveiled as the X, and if they were to try to release another console like a year or two later, that's financial suicide, and they would face such a huge backlash, not only from the customers, but developers. It's too soon. It's just too soon in a console world.
Yeah, so I don't really think that there's much of a story there. I mean, it's kind of fun. Like you said, it's rumors and speculation, and it's always fun to talk about that. I think that Sony's... I mean, I'd be surprised if they came out with the console next year. Honestly, I can't even see it.
I seriously think for both Microsoft and Sony, it'll be 2020. Because
at the earliest.
At the earliest, yeah. Because by that point, either Zen 2 or Zen Plus, whatever they're going to be calling it, like that architecture will be out, and it's going to be a smaller architecture. I think it's moving to 7 nanometer. And Navi is also supposed to be on 7 nanometer.
Right.
And Navi will be out by then. And, you got to give these things enough time to coalesce into a way that is going to be worth it, not only for Microsoft and Sony, but also for AMD, for whoever makes the memory, the hard drives, everything else like that. And then, of course, there's always the big question: by 2020, will either of them even have optical disk drives? Right. Or will we all just download?
Yeah, I mean, I can appreciate more than I could before, but I mentioned, a family house up in the mountains, and it's a Dish network, and I actually got a chance to experience the pain that people on crappy ISP's experience, because it isn't just the speed, it's the limitations, and it's something you get so used to not having to worry about. So Dish has a 5 gig monthly limit. Can you fucking imagine that shit? 5 gig monthly.
Dude, 5 gig, I could download enough porn for that in a day if I tried. You know what I mean? Like, come on.
Yeah, man. I mean, so and I can't even, like, and there's nothing up there. Like, if the internet, if you use up your limit, and what they'll do is they'll throttle, like, significantly, because I made a mistake I went up there and I took my old Xbox and the Xbox One. I took it up there and we, got it on the internet, and I downloaded, I think, like 2 games, and I exceeded the limit easily, and then it was really, really slow. Like, even our phones, because there's no carrier signal up there. So for communication and everything, not just games and entertainment, but like your phones, like texting, and if your phone supports, Wi-Fi texting, anything, messaging, all that stuff, it's basically through that one internet connection. And so anyway, I can see what I did. I just wound up taking an external hard drive and took stuff up there. But you can't really buy games on external hard drives, so optical discs are still the way to go. I think if that's the case, if they're going to remove them, they should just have an external, like, Blu-ray drive that you can plug in. If you need one, you can go buy one, and they should make them cheap, right? So this isn't about really making money. It's about making compelling, giving people who don't see value in an optical discless console, like, okay, I'm going to buy that console anyway, and then they can, they should sell really as almost like not as a profit component. Microsoft says, okay, fine, we want to sell these consoles, and we want people who live out there in places that don't have great internet. We want you to play games too, so we're just going to sell this really, cheap. I don't know how expensive could be an external.
$15.
Yeah, like, how expensive could they really be, right? I'm not saying Microsoft should take a loss, but I'm just saying they should sell them pretty much near at cost as they're comfortable with, and that would probably be like $15-$20, shit, even $30, right? Like. And then that way people can still play the games, which gives them a reason to buy the console. And everybody else can just be like, yeah, fuck that shit, we're out. It's all digital from here on out. That seems to me to be the smart move. But I did want to mention something else, too. This came up, and I saw this earlier today. And some people might have noticed, I haven't seen Ready Player One yet, but apparently in Ready Player One, the MA5B Halo, the classic Halo machine gun assault rifle, is in the movie, as well as at some point, again, I haven't seen it, there's a scene where there's a bunch of Halo soldiers, like the Marines, in there fighting. And so, and of course, that being a Spielberg-produced movie and directed, right? He directed that, yeah?
I think he produced this. I don't think he directed
Ready Player One? I think he may have directed it.
I'm not sure. He's attached to it somehow. I know that.
Yeah. I mean, he should be. It's basically 80s movie nostalgia is Spielberg movies. So, anyway, there has long been rumored since the launch of Xbox One. It's funny now because Xbox One X is just the Xbox One to me now. Like, it's hard for me to. In fact, I think maybe even. No, it wasn't 360. It was Xbox One. So, yeah, Xbox One did have a sort of media component. They originally were going to start producing their own original Xbox shows.
I remember that, where they actually had Spielberg attached to do something for Halo.
So yeah, and they had Peter Jackson on board for stuff. They had their whole sort of entertainment division. But again, that was early on with Microsoft when they were pushing the Kinect, pushing this Xbox as a whole sort of media consumption center of your universe.
Hence the name one console to rule them all.
Right. And one console to rule your streaming, your home streaming and music, and specially produced TV content, because it was also that whatever the division was, that entertainment Xbox media division, they also produced the Atari Search for E.T. documentary thing.
Right. They
produced that. Then Phil Spencer came in and said we've got to right this ship, cut all that crap out. So anyway, Spielberg was on board, and throughout the years, whenever asked, he said, "Oh no, it's not dead. It's not dead." Well, good news on that front. If you're excited about Halo or a Spielberg produced whatever movie show, so now news has come out that the series is finally set to begin production, and it will start in October. And the filming location is in Budapest, Hungary. So it's actually not only, still sitting out there, in development hell, but they've nailed down, I guess, the time and the place, and Spielberg is still attached to produce. So
Interesting.
yeah, and I mentioned the Ready Player One thing because, of course, people would see Spielberg putting Halo stuff in his movies, and naturally the question would be, okay, so you've got that stuff. Where's your Halo TV show?
Right.
And we still don't even know what it's about. I mean, I don't know that it's going to be about Master Chief. It's probably going to be about Spartans. That would be dumb if it wasn't. But I'll be curious. I'm still excited. I'm still a huge Halo fan. I think Spielberg makes good movies, so I'm looking forward to that.
Interesting. That's very interesting. Because I knew about the whole Spielberg Halo thing, and I had after they did that awesome the Fall of Reach one,
right?
And then they did that other one with Locke before he becomes a Spartan. Nightfall, which actually wasn't bad.
Yeah.
It was alright.
I liked both of those. I thought that those were really well done. They did the Fall of Reach, which was really good. They did that one. Mm-hmm. They also did the other live action one about the kids in the training camp, and then Master Chief comes out at the end and
that was the Fall of Reach.
That was at the Fall of Reach, because they also did the animated.
Oh no! It wasn't called the Fall of Reach though, but it was about the captain of the Infinity.
Right.
He was a kid, but they were calling it whatever ship that the Chief and Cortana were in at the end of Halo 3.
Right. But so there have been 3 sort of, one's animated, 2 are live action. And they were good. I liked them.
Yes, they were.
So
and thank you for the follow there, He-Man. That was a long name. It looked like He-Man Weapon something, too. Thank you for the follow on Twitch.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I guess one other thing. Reviews for God of War started coming out today.
Yeah, I heard it's awesome.
It looks awesome. Provided that I don't have to spend any extra money this coming paycheck, I am going to pick up my PS4 Pro and a copy of God of War on next Friday when it releases. Because this is the first God of War game that I've been really excited about since the original God of War.
Right.
And you remember the original God of War, remember we were playing it on our PS2, the demo disc that only got you up to that first boss?
Yeah, the sea dragon, right? Or whatever it was.
The big
the Hydra.
And we were like, oh my God, this is we were gushing. We were creaming our pants. We were
it was cool.
This was awesome. But then you find out that they blew their load on that first boss. The rest of the game just couldn't match up to that. So I haven't been truly excited about a God of War in a long time. But this one, even before I saw the reviews, just what I saw of the combat, the whole change of the story and the location, even Christopher Judge playing Kratos now, indeed, from Stargate SG-1.
Oh, okay, that's playing Kratos. Okay, doesn't Kratos have a beard now or some shit?
Yeah, but he's much older.
Why do they keep giving dudes beards? They gave what's his name? The original dual wielding bullet time guy.
Max Payne.
Max Payne, they made him fat, bald with a beard. I'm like, why am I?
Because it helps show that you've
shooting
aged.
people.
Yeah. Oh my God! And we were joking around during WrestleMania that when Triple H came out, I'm like, oh my God, he looks like a fucking cultist without the hair from Far Cry 5. And then the 2 dudes that used to go around with whatever his name was, they came out, and I'm like, they literally look like cultists. And I was like, why do all these wrestlers look like Far Cry 5 cultists?
I don't know. Yeah, they've all got beards. That's cool. Yeah, God of War. Yeah. The reviews are coming in pretty good for it.
They are. And I plan on playing it. And I had planned on getting a PS4 Pro anyway, mostly for this and Spider-Man this year. And Spider-Man's looking really good, and it has a release date now of September.
Right.
And obviously Last of Us Part 2. I don't know what else I'll be looking forward to. And I'll probably end up getting Horizon Zero Dawn in a couple weeks then and play through that. But, but yeah, so God of War is apparently reviewing really well.
Well, that's good news.
It is. It is. It helps me in my mind validate my purchase decision of saying I'm going to get God of War.
Right.
Because, like I said, if and we all go through this with games. Like, if the next Gears of War piques your interest, you haven't been interested in Gears of War since 3, so you skipped Judgment and 4. But if 5
and Judgment,
somehow,
Judgment was a free game, and 4 now is a game available in the Game Pass. And I have it installed, and I played like maybe a half hour of it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, you're right. I'm playing it. I'm like, been there, done that.
But if, let's say, what's he say? Hold on. Mr. Telehype, it's Will from, I used to work with WWE as ATL right, he meant alt-right. But, you know, if Gears 5 were to suddenly pique your interest, it would be like the same thing. Like, ooh, now you're interested in a Gears game again.
Right. Yeah,
it's
true.
It's that sort of thing. And I hope to have a good time, and I will stream my entire playthrough of God of War. And so, you know, if you just want to check out VODs or whatever, you can do that. So, I guess that's really about it.
Yeah. I'm ready to go eat. I'm gonna go eat my dinner.
Oh, you didn't eat yet?
Nah, not yet.
No. See, I ate at work because I was running a little late. So.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that I didn't have anything interrupting me, or I didn't want to get held up, so I wanted to record first and have that out of the way since we are behind.
Yeah, we are behind. So, anyway, thank you everyone for joining us. Thank you for the follow on Twitch. There, the one person who did. Like I said, it was like I and it doesn't just pop up as to who did it. It does, but when I read it, it was like what? It was like He-Man weapon, and it was just really long.
Right.
I don't remember. But you were in the middle of talking, and I didn't want to interrupt you.
Appreciate that.
So, hopefully, we'll be back within the next week or so, and hopefully, we'll have some cool topics to discuss. Whether or not, hopefully we will, because God of War comes out next Friday. So, at the very least, if we're not back next week, we can maybe discuss God of War the following week.
Yeah, and State of Decay comes out, I think next week or the week after.
Is it this month or is it May?
Is it May?
No, I think you're right. I think it is this month. I think it comes out.
I wasn't sure. I thought it came out I'm just going to look it up now.
I think it comes out the 22nd or the 23rd, so maybe the Tuesday after.
Nah, you're right.
Oh,
May 22nd. I'm jumping the gun. Damn it.
It's up there, Sayamara, one of the guys from my old World of Podcast days.
Nice.
Yeah, so. All right. Well, anyway, I'm Sam.
All right, everybody.
And we will catch you guys on the flip side because we are that cool.
Mm-hmm. Later.
Later.